world and cannot join us for in-person course. So I'll invite Claire and Sophie to join me here. So Claire is one of our leaders of Alpha. She led a number of our programs, and Sophie is, where are you, Sophie? Hi. And Sophie joined my group last time, and she will help us for the first time now in a group. Funny enough, I know Sophie since she was that tall about. Her family was in my parish in Wilmette, and her whole family plays soccer, play hockey. So they're big into hockey. She actually play on, what's the name of it? Is it like? Minnesota. You play in Minnesota in college. And so they all play in college hockey. And so she's a great athlete. And just great to have both of you to speak to us. So, you know, I told folks a bit about Alpha, but that's not all that's relevant. What's relevant is why Alpha made a difference in your life, in your busy lives now, to create space to actually help others to do it. So what's special about Alpha in your experience? I'll start with you, Claire, since you've been around the block for longer.
I've been around a few times. I was actually, someone asked me how many times I've led it. I couldn't even exactly count because I think I've done it quite a few times. So also great to be here with all of you. I think from my experience, our really good friend of ours, a fellow leader, Marco, spoke at the 9:30 Mass. And I think this is a great narrative that also impacts my own life is, you know, I've been Catholic my whole life. I would say sort of check the boxes, pray every day. You think you've done everything right, but you don't really realize the necessity of how, you know, grace can impact our relationship with Jesus can impact your life. And so I think through my experience of doing Alpha, I would say not only I think Alpha is the reason that keeps me in Chicago, the community. I have two really good friends like sitting here with me. It's the fulcrum of, you know, St. Clement is the fulcrum of my life and Alpha was the intro. But when you experience that, what matters to you and through, you know, sharing week over week, the deep intimate parts of your own heart that you share with others, like if that matters to you, that matters to God. And I think I've seen that in my own life, but then I think walking as a leader with so many people over the course of so many weeks of seeing him show up in their lives, that to me, I think is just the continue. It's new every time. So that freshness, that dynamism is just, it's so beautiful and so profound, so.
Yeah. Sophie, tell a little bit about, you know, how did you find the experience meaningful? Again, you're busy, you have a lot of things going on, you travel a lot, but why did you stay focused on it? What did you get out of it that was a surprise?
Great question.
Because I kind of guilt you into it. I'm good at it.
He did guilt me into it. Hi, friends. Welcome to Mass. Super excited to be here. So as Father Peter said, there was a little bit of guilt involved in him getting me to Alpha. So I have known Father Peter since I was kindergarten? I think kindergarten. And so for me, you know, Father Peter also mentioned I'm an athlete. So I was fortunate enough to play college hockey at the University of Minnesota. I'm the fifth of 6 kids. And so I always am craving community and being surrounded by people that maybe share, you know, most importantly, similar values to me, but also challenge me to think differently. And I think when it comes to my relationship with the Lord, Alpha has been a great segue for me to not only form a community of like-minded friends, and just like you, Claire, I have a whole row of my Alpha friends that I sit with at church that have become very influential in my life. So when I graduated 4 years ago, you know, it is a difficult transition going from collegiate athletics to the real world. If anyone's an athlete here, they can probably relate to that. And I have always found comfort in the Lord, and I've always found comfort in the way the Holy Spirit has moved in my life. And so for me, much credit to Father Peter. You know, I feel like Father Peter has been a big impact in terms of my relationship with the Lord, because he definitely gave me the courage to say, I really think you should explore Alpha and sign up. And so the community that I've gained has been very influential in my life. My relationship with the Lord has never been stronger. And I think even more than that, it's a really safe space in the chaos of the world. For anyone here who's in their 20s and 30s and trying to navigate life post-grad, or maybe you didn't go to college and you're just trying to get through the day-to-day, there are so many distractions and temptations in our world. And when I go to Alpha, I know I'm surrounded by people who are going through that with me, and we can all be vulnerable and welcome the Holy Spirit into our lives. And then once Alpha ends, we go and we bring it forth to other people in our 9 to 5s and our day-to-day interactions.
That's awesome. So somebody I talked with at 8 o'clock is in her late 60s, and as she was talking about her experience, she said, you know, oh, I have only one regret, and that is that I've done it 30 years ago. She said, have I done it 30 years ago, my whole Christian life would be very different. She said, now I talk about my faith to people. I am not embarrassed at all. I'm free. And she said, if you tell me 2 years ago I would speak to a group of people in the church about my faith, I would think you crazy. And she said, now I have no problem doing it. So there's something changed. So when you think about your lives, what are the one or two things that you notice change because you were listening?
I'll take this one. I think the number one thing is, I don't think I ever really consider, because this is a huge fulcrum of Alpha, and I don't want to like, you know, sort of pull like out of the bag of like sort of, you know, the surprise. There is this beautiful weekend sort of halfway through the program, or maybe more towards the end. It's the Holy Spirit weekend. And I think as Catholics, at least in my own life, I never really considered the work of the Holy Spirit in my life. But I think I think a few things. So the realization of calling upon him, and I can't even like speak to this well, like, I know it's those experiences that you have when the Lord reveals his heart to you. I think when you realize how deeply loved you are, and I think just being more grounded in my identity as daughter and as friend, I think it's made me a better woman and a better worker. Of all the times I've just been through it, just the profound experiences of it's just so incredible. So I think, yeah, I can't even speak to it. It's just so amazing. So
Sure.
I think that was a good explanation. The Holy Spirit weekend is very impactful and profound for sure. I think the greatest takeaway that I have with Alpha, and that I use in my day-to-day, is that there are such highs and there are such lows in life. And that's what, those lows make the highs so great. With Alpha, the community that I have built, as well as the relationship with the Lord that I now have that has been strengthened, the biggest takeaway I have is that God is constant and God is faithful. And in the days where you are having a tough time, whether it be something personal, professional, maybe you're struggling in your relationship with your partner, whatever it is, God is always there and he's always constant. And I think I like your reference to the Holy Spirit weekend. I call upon the Holy Spirit all the time in times of frustration and then in times of celebration. So hopefully, when the Bears win this afternoon, we'll be calling upon the Holy Spirit for celebration. Correct. But for me, I think it's been really influential that I've always known God's there, and I talk to God like a friend. I always have, but I think with Alpha, I've been able to do that in a more comfortable way because I just feel his presence more. I welcome him more, and can't recommend Alpha enough because of that.
Yeah. That's great. We also have to call the Holy Spirit upon the Cubs because there's. Oh, true. We hope to get to the next level. Anyway, as you are concluding, what I've been talking about, what Father Matt has been talking about, is for us as priests, right? One of the ways in which we assess the health of the church is whether people become disciples, right? Because Jesus didn't say, come and have bodies seated in the pews. That's not Christianity. Jesus said, come and worship me, so the worship that you do, my communion with me, will transform you into being my disciples, into bringing the good news of Jesus to others. And I was talking to one of our Alpha leaders outside, and I said, the hardest experience for me as a pastor is when I see somebody sitting in a pew for a year, and then as St. Clement goes, 30% of our parishioners move away in the summer. And so they leave, and then a year later or sometime later, I kind of think, oh my gosh, so-and-so is gone, like they're gone. And I think about their influence in St. Clement, and I say, there wasn't any. They always were customers. They never became contributors. They never chose to help others to grow in faith. And I think, isn't that sad that in such a vibrant church, some of us are tempted just to consume versus to contribute? And I think that Alpha is an invitation. It's a good grant to prepare you to be a contributor in the church. And I'm thinking about, I see Maria and her husband Michael, right, who are your leaders, and now they're so generous, they step away from Alpha to lead Alpha Marriage Prep, to help to prepare young couples for marriage. That's the generosity that I talk about. You usher the faith of others, you do it for a while, and then you say, what is God calling me next? So this community will flourish because Jesus is flourishing in me, and that's the beauty of it. So friends, join us for Alpha. There will be a table outside. Join us for any fall courses. But more importantly, use any of our offerings as possible just to ask yourself this simple question. How do you listen to God? Do you make space to listen to God in your life? And how does this listening continue to change your life and make you a better Christian? Please join me in just thanking Claire and Sophie for joining me. Thanks, guys. I'll take the mic. Thank you. Thank you, Sophie. I'll take that. Okay.